So into game 2 on Disco Bloodbath again here. So game 1 was TVT, and while both players macroed pretty reasonably, Matticus had the edge with the earlier expand, and ultimately was able to rock up and deliver a killer blow to Biggels, and is 1-0 up. This time Biggels going to wall off on the low ground here, and I like that. I think that's quite a nice touch. It's relatively straightforward to wall this ramp, and you've got then easy to defend expo here. So yeah, I'd kind of probably open like that myself. Send in the second SCV down. Maybe that's going to go on Scott. No, it's going to build a second depot, and I don't agree with that, not one bit. Build a barracks next, not another depot. You don't need it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, Matticus is going for the slightly more standard depot into barracks, and gas coming down as well. Double gas, don't quite agree with. Single gas is generally all you need to begin with. You know, on the ground, what is it you're going to build that needs that much gas? You know, there isn't anything. You've only got one barracks. So unless you are planning something, you know, a real rush into maybe Banshees or something like that, you never really need to open with the double gas as a Terran. You can delay that second gas until you've dropped your expand. Anyway, yeah, so both these players are going to have a wall, which is going to be able to deny scouting from either player. Biggels with the slightly later barracks, and also has an engineering bay in production. We saw that in the last game as well, you know, both players choosing to go very early engineering bay. And again, it's not something I think is really necessary against Terran. So I'm not sure about that as a strategy. I think I personally prefer to have a second Rax, or, you know, maybe just get my expand down slightly quicker than spend money on an engineering bay. This Marine positioned on the ramp is quite a nice touch. Just means that if a worker does appear and tries to do a bit of scouting, with the Marines in this sort of position, they will discourage that from happening, and probably prevent that worker from getting in and having a scout. Once you've got a few Marines here, they'll actually prevent the worker from getting to the top of the ramp, so your opponent doesn't get to see whether or not you've got an expand. But with the SCV appearing here, it does look like Matticus is going to be building an expo as soon as he's got the money, and that's just tipped over the 400 now, and there is the command center. So all very nice stuff. Second barracks is coming down for Biggels. You know, this queue of Marines, like there's 200 minerals sat in a queue. If you had that 200 in hand, you'd have enough to be building your command center. So yeah, you want to avoid that if you can. I mean, a little bit later in the game, once everything's sort of up and running, it's less critical, but near the start of the game, queues are definitely to be avoided if you can, because at the start of the game, you know, timings are pretty critical. The sooner you can get stuff happening, the better. So a minute earlier on your command center can make quite a big difference to how the game goes. And having a queue of Marines like that does certainly delay you having enough minerals to build stuff. So Matticus with the factory coming down, Biggels also with the factory coming down. The timings on the factories are almost identical there. So this is shaping up nicely. We've got Biggels has gone for armor and the armor upgrade, sorry, and Matticus has gone for the attack upgrade. So weirdly, those two will actually cancel each other out pretty much directly. This does, you know, 1 extra damage per hit, and this subtracts 1 extra damage per hit absorbed. So those two upgrades, and again, the timing on those, the armor's going to finish marginally before this. The timing on those is pretty similar, and they will effectively cancel each other out. So Biggels is the first person to venture out onto the map to have a look around. He's going to send this SCV across, presumably just to see what it can see. And this is all good. You can see there in the production tab that Matticus has got Marauders building. Biggels, you know, the production tab isn't idle, but until just a second ago didn't really have any units in that production tab, so is now building a couple of Marines, which is all good. So if we look at, let's look at a few metrics here. If we look at the income tab, it's not crazily different, but Matticus does have that slight advantage coming from the earlier Expo. And there's what I'm talking about with this type of positioning of the Marines. It does just mean that Biggels gets no information, hasn't a clue whether or not there's even Expo here. So if he wants to find that out, he would need to drop a scan. I mean, we're gone past the 5 minutes mark, so you would generally assume that there is an Expo, because if it was going to be some sort of one base, it would have already arrived. Tech Lab is done here, but look, this combat shield upgrade isn't being researched yet. So I'd really, if there was one thing I could say you need to improve, or one thing to look out for as a Terran player, pretty much as soon as you've got a couple of barracks up and you're starting to produce Marines, you get a tech lab and you get these upgrades, because they really do make quite a big difference. Combat shield in particular, stim is excellent, but does sort of require some user input to be effective, in as much as you have to stim the Marines and you have to have medevacs to counteract the damage that stim does. But combat shield, you don't. You just got to click that upgrade once and forget about it, and your stuff is simply better. So armor coming down from Matticus as well. If we have a quick look at the army supply, we can see very, very similar. Worker supply is similar, and actually most things look similar. Upgrade spending is going to be similar too. Biggels hasn't got the +1 attack started just yet. You can see that there's a fusion core building in Matticus's base, so that is presumably going to be for a battle cruiser. And again, Biggels here is going for this planetary fortress in the main. It's not going to help. I don't like it. I'd much prefer you were going for an orbital command. Allows you to scan, allows you to drop mules. All of those are good things. A scan smack in the middle of your opponent's base is a kind of undefendable scout. You can't stop it, you can't prevent it. There's nothing you can do to avoid that scan successfully seeing all of your stuff. So I don't see a battlecruiser in production yet, but we know that the fusion core has finished up. So presumably that is, there it is, there's the battlecruiser starting now, and that battlecruiser will be able to blink into the back of Biggels' base and do stuff. Now Biggels knows this is coming. He's got that sensor tower, actually 2 sensor towers overlapped in the middle of the map, so he will see this blue line hopefully making its way across. If I just zoom out a little bit, again, a siege tank up on the high ground there would be awesome. I don't like this coming down the ramp in order to engage. You're much better off staying where you are at the top of your ramp behind your wall and allowing your opponent to come to you. All of this stuff feeding its way down the ramp. Oh no, not the siege tanks. No, don't. You need this stuff back up here. You need your opponent to come through this unpleasant choke to try and get to you. Bear in mind, he can't see up here. He can't see the units that are up here. Once you come down, he can see them and he can attack them. So if all your units are up here, and he moves in, he takes an absolute piston. This siege tank needs to be in position up here. This siege tank is good. The position in the Marines is good, and this planetary fortress will hold strong for a long time. But don't go down the ramp. You will die if you go down the ramp. The turrets, actually, surprisingly, are going to be vaguely useful, but the siege tanks on the low ground are quickly going to see those off. So actually, this battle cruiser coming in is going to be really useful in terms of giving vision up top there. And at this stage, the army supply is just going to be overwhelming. I think Matticus can now safely just click for the win. A sensor tower isn't what you need. That's not going to help you at all. I'd be very surprised if it finishes up. So again, positioning wise, have a siege tank up here, not right up at the edge, somewhere about here. Don't go down the ramp when you see your opponent coming. Just position your units in a nice concave at the top of the ramp. And another thing to look out for, and we've seen this many times, if you do have a planetary fortress, repair it with your SCVs. It pretty much makes them indestructible. Although ultimately the battle cruiser would kill everything because the planetary fortress does not shoot up. So again, this game is essentially over. There isn't really any army left for Biggels, and Matticus can now just click up this ramp. and has done, and slowly but surely this planetary will eventually fall if it doesn't get repaired, and it doesn't. So this is over, and I'm just waiting for the GG. I'm beginning to sense there isn't going to be one, but yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's a bit of a mauling. GG.